about what you think the potential is for ecotourism, particularly an ecotourism market or related industries in Chula Vista's Bayfront, and whether or not a large sports venue or other large venues on the Bayfront would spoil that or ruin the potential for that. And this time we'll start with Mr. Vincent.
I certainly think that a large sports venue would affect an ecotourism. That's not hard to figure out. But whether we could draw an ecotourism as a city, I really don't know. Ecotourism is a tough sell, and your competition is tough as well. So I really don't know.
Ms. Moriarty?
I think everybody can kind of figure out where I would be about having the Chargers on the Bayfront. I would not be for that. So that's where I stand on that. In ecotourism, I would want to encourage and support, but I really don't know all the details of that either, and how we would support that. But I think we have beautiful coastal lands that we need to protect, and people don't appreciate what we have. I've been over to the estuary and I'm sort of all there by myself many times, which is nice. I don't have any complaints, but I don't know that people enjoy what we do have here. Thanks.
Thank you. It's another one of those sort of lost and unpromoted resources we have. Our nature center is something that costs the city roughly about $1 million a year. Frankly, we haven't promoted it the way that it should be promoted. We ought to give those interests that understand ecotourism, if that exists to the extent where it can be feasible, an opportunity to promote that facility in that venue. We ought to look at that very, very seriously, and we ought to move forward on that. With respect to the Chargers, whether we're talking about the Bayfront or somewhere in eastern Chula Vista, the City Council has been unanimous, I believe, in terms of allowing the Chargers to do all the work, to come to us and determine whether or not it makes financial sense for the City of Chula Vista and the Chargers and the region to locate a stadium here. The fact is, it's very difficult because the Chargers have said Chula Vista is it. We can't do it there. We can't do it anywhere. And who knows? They're off to Tucson or somewhere else, and I'm not really quite sure who they're talking to. But I'm willing to allow them to bring the financial data and see how it works out for the city.
Let me interrupt you there because the answers to that question are kind of morphing into my next question, which was more broadly on Chargers as a whole. So maybe we'll just blend the two. When you're answering the question about ecotourism potential on the Bayfront and how big facilities might impact that, because a couple other folks have already answered that, and particularly the councilman did just now. Expand on that also and comment in general about the Chargers. And I'll let you take a shot at this again, Councilman, first. So as part two of this question, before we move any further, what are your positions on a Charger facility in Chula Vista? Should that be a priority for the city? Should we be working with them? And what are your thoughts about a potential location, if any?
Well, first of all, it's not a priority for me. I don't believe it's a number one priority for at least 4 of the members of the City Council. But the fact is, we have said to the Chargers, tell us exactly what the finances are, tell us what the numbers are, show us how this makes sense fiscally for the city. Frankly, I firmly believe that if it doesn't make sense in the city of San Diego, I'm not really quite sure how it's going to make sense in the city of Chula Vista, but we've made that sort of an agreement with the Chargers, and we should stick by that. The interesting thing about ecotourism, and a lot has been made about the estuary, a lot has been made about the biological tourism. The fact is that when we remove the power plant, the sea turtles that we find very, very important and I think valuable to the ecosystem of the Bayfront will probably go away, because it's been proven that the reason the turtles are there is because of the hot water that is emitted into the bay by the power plant once it's gone through its cooling system. So the fact is, we don't really know what's going to happen to those turtles. We don't really know what's going to happen to the salt works. There's a lot of work to be done. I think what we need to do is address the issues that are on the plate now. That's the nature center. We need to learn how to make that financially stable so that we can continue to operate that. And if there is an opportunity to promote ecotourism in Chula Vista. We need to look at that too. But I don't think they're all exclusive. I think that we need to look at everything in context, and we have to understand what makes sense for the city, what doesn't, and those things that don't make sense, we need to get them off the plate as quickly as possible.
We'll extend the time for answer on this too a little bit. Ms. Aguilar, ecotourism and the chargers.
Pamela had it right when she said earlier that Chula Vista has many, many, many assets that we simply don't promote and we don't market. And probably right at the top of that list is the fact that within the boundaries of the city of Chula Vista, we have a national federal wildlife refuge. The purpose of that refuge is to protect some birds that do their nesting on the ground. So there's some birds that are on the endangered species list that reside in that refuge. You may laugh at this, but, and I know this from my background as an investment advisor, birding is a very, very lucrative business. Birders are people that make high income. They travel all over the country, all over the world in order to see birds. They spend a lot of money wherever they go. We need to get those people here, and we can if only we start marketing the good things we have. On the issue of the chargers, let me say this. I'm skeptical, but my mind is not closed. I want to see the deal that the chargers offer Chula Vista, if they ever offer us a deal. If they say, oh, let us build a charger stadium here and we'll take care of the $500,000 in infrastructure needs that you have. Well, I'd be willing to look at that. So I think that although I'm very skeptical, I have an open mind on the chargers. If they offer Chula Vista a deal that makes sense for Chula Vista, that makes sense for the residents of Chula Vista, and does not impact our wildlife refuge, I think we can think about it at that time.
Ms. Ben-Sisson?
Well, ecotourism thrives in many areas of the country that have fewer resources than we do in Chula Vista. This is a real tourism phenomena, and I would love to see us spend much more effort in marketing the assets that we have on the bayfront, the nature center, the estuary, the wildlife refuge, and, which no one has talked about yet, the salt works. The salt works have been an incredible contributor to the ecosystem on the bayfront, and it's an incredible historic resource. It's the oldest continuing operating salt works in the country, having operated for over 100 years. There are numerous possibilities for an interpretive center there, for some kind of additional tourist attraction, and I know that the county supervisor, Greg Cox, is very interested in that as well. And I just really like to see Chula Vista embrace this concept instead of cutting the director of the Nature Center out of the budget. I just think that we need to show confidence. We need to invest in ways that will bring us visitors and tourists to Chula Vista, which we sorely need. And Chula Vista is not known around the country. We can be known. We don't have to have chargers on the bayfront to be a world-class city. We are a world-class city. Nobody knows it because we're not marketing that. The chargers, I went to a meeting where our city manager said, what project, as a response to someone's concerned about the environmental impacts on the bayfront that the chargers project would bring. And the city manager himself said, what project? There is no project there. We have not even talked directly to the chargers, only to a PR man in a nice suit, something to that effect. So, of course I'm open-minded, but I don't think at Charger Stadium is compatible with the ecotourism that I'd like to see on the Bayfront.
Mr. Vincent